Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Let's get on with it and learn something new, shall we? You probably clicked on this video from my previous video where I talked about stochastic and deterministic effects. And if you didn't, what the hell are you doing? Go back and watch that and then come back here. And give it a like while you're there, okay?
Don't tell me what to do.
Anyways, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the linear no threshold model, or the LNT model for short. The LNT model is a widely accepted approach used to assess the risk of cancer induction at varying doses of ionizing radiation. And it's based on the principle that there is no safe threshold of radiation exposure, and that even low doses of radiation carry some risk of causing cancer or biological damage. It's been the preferred way of thinking on the consensus of low dose radiation risk, forming the basis of the as low as reasonably achievable principle, or ALARA for short. But let's break it down bit by bit. The L in the LNT model, which stands for linear, is derived from the evidence of risk associated with very high doses of radiation. That is, we have evidence for risk associated with high doses, and based on that evidence, we try to calculate the risks associated with lower doses that are more relevant to the diagnostic level of doses used in medicine. So by observing the relationship between the number of individuals affected by fatal cancer and the effective dose of radiation received, it seems to reveal a linear pattern. So for example, suppose we say 5 sieverts, so that's 5,000 millisieverts by the way, of radiation exposure results in 250 fatal cancers in a population of 1,000 individuals. And 1 sievert results in 50 cancers. The relationship is constant or linear between the number of affected people in that population to the effective dose they received. Make sense? Again, if you forget what effective dose is, I've made a separate video on it, so link down below for you. Now, the natural thing to do given this information is to extrapolate down to the doses more relevant to diagnostic exposures, right? And when we do that, the data shows that if let's say 1 million people were to receive an effective dose of 5 millisieverts from an X-ray based examination, then in theory, according to the linear model, out of those 1 million people, it would induce about 250 fatal cancers to those individuals. So to get a percentage, we divide the two numbers, 250 divided by 1 million multiplied by 100, and we get 0.025%, which is a very, very small number. But it could still understandably give anxiety, because what if you're one of those 250 people, right? Okay, now let's shift our focus on the NT, or the no threshold part of the model. This really means the model is assuming that there is no safe level of radiation. Or in other words, however low that dose is, there is always going to be some associated risk with that exposure. Now this is just really a protection against our ignorance, because it's just a safe approach to take in the absence of good evidence. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time. This no threshold of safe dose, together with the linear part of the model, forms the basis of the ALARA principle. And since there is no safe threshold, the risk is considered directly associated with the dose in a linear fashion. So the takeaway here is that every time we expose our patients to X-rays, we need to ensure that the exposure is kept as low as possible while still producing a diagnostic image, try our best to avoid repeats, which is the easiest and #1 way to increase our patients' doses, and use our reasoned choice to justify whether certain views can be removed, based on the available information such as the patient's age and clinical history. Alright, cool, so now we have a basic idea of what the LNT model is all about, and how we could use this understanding to affect our day-to-day practice. But it isn't all sunshines and roses here, because the LNT model is open to much debate.
Debatable.
Particularly because there's little evidence to support the effects of radiation below 100 millisieverts. There are actually 3 potential alternatives to this model which have been proposed over the years. So let's talk about them, shall we? The first claims that there is in fact a dose threshold, but that below 100 millisieverts the risks are proportionally lower than those above 100 millisieverts. The second again claims that there is a threshold, but that the radiation doses may actually incur a benefit to the exposed individual. That's what this curve below the x-axis represents. Kind of like a little of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this concept is known as hormesis, where the idea is that a little radiation may cause some DNA damage, but your body will aim to rectify that damage, and in doing so, now you're more prepared for the exposure next time. Similar to how our immune system works, right? And finally, third, that a threshold does not exist, but the effects below 100 millisieverts are actually proportionally higher than those above 100 millisieverts. Alright, there's a lot to take in there. What to believe, that's the hard part. Again, because we're dealing with such low doses day to day, it's difficult to make any meaningful conclusions unless we do human trials, which are obviously not ethical and therefore won't happen. And this brings me back to my original point. That the LNT model is just the model we use because we're accepting that there is no certainty. It's the safe bet, our protection against our current ignorance on the topic. That the LNT model, at least for now, remains the most acceptable model by radiation agencies across the world when attempting to understand the risks of various doses of radiation, unless the ICRP states otherwise. But until that day, let's play it safe and assume everything has some risk. Alright, that's it for this one. I hope you learned something new today.
I understand nothing.
You should have a better understanding of what the LNT model is and the lessons that we can take from it. If you got any value from this, I really appreciate a like on the video, and if you have any suggestions, put them in the comment section below. Click here to watch my previous video on the stochastic and deterministic effects. I'll see you there. Stay curious.